Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The morning sun crept slowly across the Los Angeles cityscape, bathing the Forrester estate in a mellow golden tone. Inside, the home was filled with the usual energy of expectancy, the sense that something major was about to happen, even if no one knew what. The Forresters had witnessed it all: scandal, treachery, tragedy, and redemption. But on this particular morning, destiny decided that the past was not quite over with them. Ridge Forrester stood by the window, sipping his black coffee and looking out at the garden that Brooke had insisted on remodeling only months before. He had that familiar wrinkle in his brow, which emerged whenever things did not feel right. "It's too quiet," he said under his breath. He didn't realize that the serenity he felt was merely the prelude of a storm that would rock the family to its core. Brooke entered the room, gorgeous as always, and dressed impeccably even before breakfast. She had spent her life balancing love and chaos, and she had always managed to emerge gracefully. "You're thinking too much again," she said, resting her hand on Ridge's shoulder. "It's simply a stunning morning." Ridge smiled softly, but did not move away from the window. "Maybe. Perhaps it's one of those mornings when everything changes." Brooke frowned. "You sound like Stephanie," she murmured, recalling the matriarch who once governed this place with both love and iron. "You always get that same tone when you're bracing for something." Before Ridge could respond, the doorbell rang, harsh and persistent. It echoed throughout the house, bringing them both back to the present. "I'll get it," said Eric, speaking from the corridor. He'd emerged out of nowhere, still tall and stately, but the years had dulled his edge. He approached the front door, curious but calm. When he opened it, his breath stopped. Standing on the threshold was someone he never expected to see again, someone he had mourned not once, but twice. "Taylor," Eric whispered. Dr. Taylor Hayes smiled softly, her eyes glittering with affection and a hint of doubt. "Hello, Eric," she said. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Eric blinked, stunned to stillness. Brooke and Ridge arrived behind him, both stopping in mid-step. Ridge's coffee cup nearly slid from his grasp. "Mom?" Ridge's voice cracked. Taylor moved nearer, her smile quivering now. "Yes, it's me, sweetheart." Brooke's face turned pale. Taylor had long been the ghost between her and Ridge, a woman whose shadow never fully vanished. Every time Brooke felt she had Ridge's heart, Taylor reappeared in some form, through memory, letters, or the children they shared. But this time she was here in flesh and blood, and it hit Brooke like a wave she didn't expect. Ridge crossed the room in 2 steps and drew Taylor into his arms. It was a long embrace, with many unfinished phrases. Taylor's eyes welled up with tears as they finally separated. "I wasn't sure I'd ever make it back," she said. "But I needed to come. There are some things you should all know." Brooke smiled politely. "Welcome home, Taylor," she replied quietly. "You always did know how to make an entrance." The tension was palpable. But before anyone could speak again, another sound reverberated from outside, the hum of an engine approaching the gate. Everyone turned towards the windows. "Who might that be?" Eric muttered. Ridge was still catching his breath at Taylor's unexpected reappearance when the door opened again. A tall man stepped inside, his countenance opaque yet unmistakable. The room went silent. "Deacon," Brooke whispered. Deacon Sharp, once the most dangerous man in her life, appeared before them again, older and wiser, but with the same unexpected fire in his eyes. "Hope told me I might find you all here," he replied nonchalantly, scanning the crowd. "I figured it was time to come back." Taylor and Deacon were 2 names that held years of secrets, regrets, and unfinished stories. 2 ghosts from the past return on the same morning. It was almost too much for the Forresters to handle. Brooke's heart quickened. "Why now, Deacon? You can't simply leave for years and then reappear in your lives." Deacon finished for her while smirking. "Yes, I expected you to say that. But I'm not here to stir things up. Brooke, I'm here because something is coming. Something that will change everything for all of us." Ridge took a step forward. What are you talking about? The deacon's expression darkened. Let's just say that some people aren't done with the Forresters yet. And I have proof. Taylor frowned, perplexed. Proof of what? Deacon hesitated, staring at her. That your disappearance wasn't just an accident. Ridge glanced at him, trying to understand what he was hearing. Taylor's plane crash, which everyone assumed took her life, was deemed an accident years ago. But now Deacon was implying something considerably darker. I think someone wanted you gone, he replied gently. And they might still be out there. Taylor's breath caught. Who would do that? Deacon glanced directly at Brooke. That's what I came to find out. Hours later, the mansion felt different, more alive than it had in years. The family had gathered in the living room, and old wounds were emerging quicker than they could heal. Ridge paced the floor as Taylor sat on the couch, fingers interlocked, attempting to piece together bits of her lost years. I don't remember much after the crash, she admitted gently. Just woke up at a rural hospital. They informed me I had a concussion and shouldn't fly. Then I realized that everything, including my files and passport, had been seized. It took me years to figure out what happened. Brooke leaned forward. Taylor, are you saying you were held against your will? Taylor nodded slowly. I believe so. They informed me I was safe where I was. Ridge's expression hardened as he realized that returning would endanger the Forresters. Who said that? I never saw their face clearly, Taylor said. But there was one name I overheard. The Consortium. Deacon breathed. That's the same name I've been hearing recently. A gang works behind the scenes to control firms, including Forrester Creations. Eric slapped his hand against the table. I knew it. Someone has been messing with our accounts and feeding information to competitors. Brooke stared at them all, stunned. So, you're saying this shadow organization tried to bring down both our company and Taylor? Deacon nodded grimly. And I believe they are plotting their next move. For a long time no one talked. The weight of what they were hearing was almost overwhelming. Ridge returned to Taylor, the protective fire in his eyes rekindling. We'll find out who did this, he vowed. Taylor smiled weakly. I promise you. You always made promises you couldn't keep, she murmured quietly, with affection in her voice. But thank you. Later that evening, when the bustle had subsided and the family had scattered into different parts of the home, Brooke found herself alone in the garden. The night air was cold and fragrant with jasmine. She had always loved this place. It was where she came to think and breathe. But tonight, the silence was thick with old ghosts. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Taylor approaching. The two women exchanged mute glances for a moment. There was so much history between them: love, competition, forgiveness, and anger. They had shared the same guy, the same grief, and, on occasion, the same sympathy. You look good, Brooke eventually replied. So do you, Taylor said with a little smile. I heard you and Ridge were trying again. Brooke nodded, but couldn't help feeling guilty. We were. It has been complicated. It always is. It always will be, Taylor answered softly. Brooke sighed and folded her arms. That's the nature of love in this family. So what happens now, Taylor? You're back. Ridge is confused. Deacon is stirring things up again. What is your plan? Taylor stared out at the garden lights, her expression unreadable. My plan is to safeguard those I care about. Whatever the Consortium is, they are dangerous. I didn't battle to come back only to see it all fall apart again. Brooke looked at her for a long time. Despite their disagreements, she knew one thing for certain. Taylor's heart was true. Then we're on the same side, she finally stated. Taylor gave a slight smile. For the time being, it will suffice. Deacon was in the study, searching through old files on Eric's computer. He wasn't supposed to be there, but patience was never one of his strengths. When he finally discovered the document he was seeking for, his eyes brightened. There it was, a transaction conducted through a covert company, linked to someone whose name sent shivers down his spine. Sheila Carter. He barely had time to respond when he heard a voice behind him. Are you looking for something, Deacon? He turned slowly. There she was, standing in the doorway, alive and flashing that terrifying smile that had frightened so many others. "Sheila," he said gently. "I thought you were gone." "Oh, I've been around," she said. "You didn't really expect me to disappear, did you? I've told you before, I always come back." Deacon's pulse accelerated. Sheila chuckled. "You're the one behind the consortium." "Not this one, sweetie. The mastermind." Before he could react, she stepped closer, her eyes sparkling like glass. "You and the Forresters have taken everything from me, including my child, freedom, and life. Now is the moment for me to make amends." Meanwhile, Ridge and Taylor were deep in conversation in the main room when they heard the crash of smashed glass from the study. Ridge was the first to arrive, only to discover Deacon on the floor, blood running from his forehead and the window broken open. Sheila was gone. Taylor knelt beside Deacon and checked his pulse. "He's alive," she replied swiftly. "We need to call the cops." Deacon's eyes widened. "No police," he muttered. Ridge clenched his hands and stated, "She's after you, all of you. Then we put an end to this, once and for all." As morning dawned over the city, the Forrester home stood like a fortress ready for assault. Taylor's return had delivered the truth. Deacon's reappearance has delivered a warning. Sheila Carter was watching from the shadows, waiting for another opportunity to strike. Brooke stood with Ridge at the window, where the day had started. "Is this happening again?" she whispered. Ridge nodded slowly.
"Yeah.
"But this time, we're fighting together." Taylor entered behind them, her gaze firm and focused. "Together," she replied. Brooke felt free of rivalry for the first time in years. She sensed unity, a fragile, vital relationship born of survival. The past has returned, not just in people's faces, but also in unresolved fights. And, while no one knew how it would end, they all understood one thing. In their world, love and peril were always two sides of the same coin. As the sun rose over Los Angeles, the stage was prepared once more. Not for endings, but for the next spectacular chapter in the saga of the daring and beautiful. The anticipation in the Forrester mansion was heavier than Los Angeles' smog on a windless July morning. Every creak of the old mahogany staircase and rustle of silk in the passageways conveyed the weight of long-buried secrets. Brooke Logan stood at the base of the big staircase, her fingers tightening on the banister as if it were the only thing preventing her from unraveling. Stephanie Forrester's portrait glared down at her from the landing above, its painted eyes piercing enough to cut through years of treachery, forgiveness, and all in between. Brooke's heart pounded. She had returned to this house 1,000 times, sometimes as the prodigal daughter, sometimes as the enemy, but never in this manner. Never knowing that the past was going to enter through the front door wearing stilettos and a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Ridge Forrester walked the length of his father's old study, which Eric had given him years ago when the weight of Forrester creations had become too much for one man to bear. The room smelled of leather and legacy, with designs fastened on corkboards and fabric samples hanging across chairs like abandoned lovers. Ridge's reflection in the window was a ghost of the man he once was, with silver weaving through his dark hair and deeper creases around his eyes. He had constructed civilizations and then destroyed them in the name of love. He had picked Brooke, then Taylor, and then Brooke again, until the distinction between destiny and damage was muddled beyond recognition. But tonight was not about Brooke or Taylor. Tonight was about two women who had previously defined the very borders of his world, women who had vanished into the ether of plot twists and assumed deaths, only to be resurrected by the terrible alchemy of soap opera logic.
The doorbell rang. Once. Twice.
A third time, urgent, like a heartbeat that refuses to be ignored. Hope Logan halted in the kitchen, her spoon poised over an untouched bowl of yogurt. She had been attempting to eat something, anything, to ease her anxiety after Liam's newest admission about his lingering affections for Steffi. But the sound of the bell cut through the home haze like a scalpel. She recognized that ring. She had heard it in her nightmares, when she allowed herself to question if the dead ever truly remained dead in Los Angeles. Down the hall, Steffi Forrester, now Steffi Forrester once again, Liam's divorce papers still warm in her desk drawer, paused mid-sentence during her phone chat with Finn. "I have to go," she murmured, her voice suddenly low. Finn's complaints faded to static as she ended the conversation. She was familiar with that doorbell as well. It had previously reported her mother's return from the dead after Taylor had been shot and presumed dead. But this was different. This was larger. The front door opened. And there she was. Sheila Carter. Not the Sheila who had fled in humiliation after her previous reign of terror. Not the Sheila who was handcuffed and assumed drowned in a convenient ocean. This was Sheila 2.0, with darker hair, sharper eyes, and a smile that could curdle milk at 20 paces. She donned a fitted black suit that caressed every contour she had honed through prison workouts and sheer spite. In her palm, she held a single crimson rose, its petals so dark that they appeared black in the foyer light. "Hello, darlings," she said softly, walking over the threshold as if she owned the place. "Have you missed me?" The collective gasp could have run the city grid for a week. Brooke's knees buckled. She found herself on the newel post, her manicured nails sinking into the wood. Ridge appeared at the top of the stairs, his face full of thunder and disbelief. Hope dropped her spoon, which clattered on the marble countertop like a gunshot. Steffi's phone dropped from her grasp and cracked on the hardwood floor. Sheila's chuckle was low and throaty, like a lady who had clawed her way out of purgatory using only manicure scissors and a grudge. "Don't look so astonished.
You knew I would be back."
"I always return." But Sheila was not alone. Another ghost stood behind her, framed in the doorway like a vengeance-themed Renaissance painting. Deacon Sharp. Except that this wasn't the Deacon, who had sunk into oblivion following his latest prison sentence. This was not the Deacon who had begged Hope's pardon or skulked around Brooke's life like a stray dog. This was Deacon Reborn, taller, broader, and his eyes burned with a clarity that bordered on insane. His leather jacket was new, and his boots were polished to a mirror finish. The scar that ran through his left brow, a remnant from a bar brawl in the valley, reflected the light like a warning. He stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Brooke. "Hey, Logan," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion that may have been regret or triumph. "I told you I'd find my way back." The room slanted. Time closed in on itself. Every betrayal, every stolen kiss, and every lie uttered in the dark came crashing back like a tsunami. Brooke discovered her voice initially. Sheila smiled. "You're supposed to be dead." "Death is negotiable in this town," Deacon said as he went by her, his boots booming on the marble floor. He paused in front of Hope, who had turned pale as paper. "Hey, kid," he spoke softly. "Your old man's home." Hope's palm shot to her mouth. Tears welled up unbidden. She had spent years attempting to remove him from her life, attempting to establish stability with Liam and Beth while maintaining the fragile tranquility of motherhood. But here he was, larger than life, smelling of leather, and making poor decisions. Ridge descended the stairs carefully, taking each step deliberately. "This is a joke," he explained. Sheila tilted her head, some kind of sick Forrester prank. "Oh, honey, if only." Steffi discovered her spine first. She moved forward, her Louboutins clicking like gunfire. "Get out," she snarled. "Both of you." "Before I contact security," Deacon raised an eyebrow. "Security?" "Steffi, I changed your diapers." "That was a lifetime ago," she exclaimed. "And you don't get to waltz back in here like nothing happened." Sheila clapped her hands, overjoyed. "Oh, I enjoy a good family reunion. The tension, the drama. It's better than anything on the runway." Brooke finally moved. She crossed the entryway in 3 steps and slapped Sheila across the face. The sound reverberated around the room like lightning. Silence. Sheila caressed her cheek, her eyes glinting with danger. "You always did have a good right hook, Brooke." "Don't," Brooke said quietly. "Don't you dare to speak to me like we're old friends," Deacon said, stepping between them with his fists raised.
"Easy.
"We are not here to fight." "So, why are you here?" Ridge requested. Sheila and Deacon exchanged looks. The kind of expression that conveyed volumes without saying a word. the kind of expression that said they had planned everything down to the last detail. "We're here," Sheila continued, "to take back what's ours." The words hung in the air like smoke. Hope laughed with a brittle, shattered sound. "You have nothing here. You never did." Deacon softened his expression as he stared at her. "I got you, Hope. I have a daughter. And I had a life I was cheated out of." Sheila's smile became feral. "And I've got a son, Finn, my adorable boy, who's been brainwashed by that sanctimonious wife of his and her perfect little family?" Steffi exclaimed. "Leave Finn out of this." "Too late," Sheila responded. "He is already in it. Whether he knows it or not." Ridge clenched his hands. "You stay away from my granddaughter's family." Sheila's laugh was venomous. "Oh, Ridge, you can't draw lines anymore. Not after everything you've done." Brooke's words sliced through the tension like a razor. "How did you do it?" "The explosion. The fire." Sheila shrugged. "We saw the footage. A girl's got to have her secrets." Deacon's grin was crooked. "Let's just say I have pals in low places. And Sheila has a penchant for defying death."